Good Wednesday evening, everybody. David Paul with you. We're live in the KHOU 11 Weather Center. This is our nightly complete look at the tropics. And as you know, we've got a spot that we are monitoring for possible development in the Gulf of Mexico as we head into this evening. And that will be with us for the next couple of days until it runs out of warm water and real estate here. That's where it's going to try to develop. We'll complete rundown on that here in just a moment. The other player on the board is Erin. Tropical storm winds have come up to 50 miles an hour in Erin, so it's still a weak to moderate tropical storm. It is forecast to become not only our first hurricane, but our first major hurricane of the 2025 season. We've got a complete rundown on Erin coming up here as well. But here on the Gulf Coast, this has our full attention, even though it is just an area of disturbed weather over the Yucatan Peninsula. But late tonight, early tomorrow morning, it will move off into the warm waters of the southern Gulf. And at that point, it will have a slight chance for seeing possible tropical development. We've got very warm water here. Wind shear conditions are moderately favorable for development, but it's going to make a quick run from here up to the northern Mexican coast in about 36 hours. So it doesn't have much time to get its act together and develop, but that being the case, there is still a chance that it could develop. I'll show you all the modeling on this as we move forward. Real quickly, we'll set your bearings. Here we are, August 13th, and we're in that time of the hurricane season where statistically we get a lot more activity going all the way up to the peak of the season there at September 10th. And then even though we drop off going into early October, we stay very active statistically. Get a secondary peak in the end of October. Just statistics show we get that second peak, and then it falls off as we head into November. So we're in the phase of hurricane season where things can develop rapidly. And this spot in the Gulf is a perfect example. Just in the last 24 hours, this popped up on the map, even though we weren't expecting any new development for 7 days. We have a couple of forecasts. Colorado State University, this is their mid-season forecast, came out a couple of weeks ago. They're forecasting 16 named storms. Normal is 14. So forecasting a little bit above normal activity in the Atlantic Basin. That'll be 16 named storms by the end of the season. And then NOAA's mid-season update, which came out about a week or so ago, basically the same thing. They've got a range. They're calling for 13 to 18 named storms. Again, normal is 14, so that would be in there at perhaps a little bit above average number of storms by the end of the 2025 season. One thing in favor of a high storm count, a lot of warm water over the Atlantic Basin, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico. But just because you have warm water, even temperatures that are way above normal, these are a little bit above normal, even temps that are way above normal does not mean you're going to have a lot of hurricanes. There's so many more factors that go into it. How strong are the waves coming off of Africa? How much dust, if any, is out over the Atlantic Basin? Wind shear is by far the biggest factor into whether or not you'll have storm development. And so far, the dust has kept the storm count relatively low. We've had 5 weak tropical storms, Erin being the 5th one, but Erin now looks like it's going to get into an area where it could further develop. Now, the dust forecast, it is interesting. We're still expecting plenty of dust over the Atlantic Basin. You know, here we are as we go into Wednesday, August the 20th, so even a week out, and that's the basic track of Erin. So it is interacting with some of that dust right now, and that may be a factor of keeping it very weak right now. But again, it is forecast to become a major hurricane once it moves further to the west over the weekend. Storm count so far this season, Andrea, Barry, Chantal, Dexter were 4 very weak, very short-lived tropical systems. Barry is of interest because that one, very weak, barely a tropical storm, made landfall in Tampico, but all that moisture came up into Texas and exacerbated the flooding that happened in central Texas. That was partly a function of the deep tropical moisture that came into Mexico and then into Texas from that weak little piddly tropical storm Barry. So even the little systems have to be watched like a hawk where that slug of moisture is going to go. And Erin, now our tropical storm out over the open Atlantic, that one looks like it is going to become a major hurricane. Okay, let's get to it. This is where our tropical disturbance is. Technically, the Hurricane Center has it centered here. There really is no center to it right now. Blob of rain and thunder, and it's in the process of moving over the Yucatan. You can see it moving off into the Gulf of Mexico, and once it's over the warm water early in the morning, that's when it will begin to have a chance to begin to perhaps get organized with some low-level spin. Closer view, what you're looking at, the bright colors on the satellite, we enhance the cold cloud tops. The brighter the reds and oranges, the colder the cloud tops. Those are the clouds that are going way up to the top of the atmosphere. Indicates deep convection up and down motion in the atmosphere. Deep convection means you got motion all the way to the top, 40, 50, 60,000 feet. It's bitter cold up there. So even though the colors are hot, it indicates cold cloud tops, but that tells us where the deeper thunderstorm activity is and where the strongest weather is with these systems. You can see the blob itself is about to move out over the warm waters of the southern Gulf. And I say warm waters because as we look at sea surface temperatures, a couple of things. That's Erin, it's in 82, 83 degree water right now. It's going to be moving into 85, 86 degree water here. But in the Gulf of Mexico, it is so warm. 87 here in the Bay of Campeche. Again, that's where our disturbance is about to move into. 89, 86, 89 degree surf temperature. These are buoys. This is live data, not satellite estimated, but live buoy data. So we know we've got very warm water out there. But again, just because even if water is 100 degrees, it doesn't mean you're going to get an active hurricane season or an active storm. It just means that if conditions are favorable for a storm, it has plenty of energy to feed off of. And under the right conditions, that warm water temperature can make a difference if the storm is not being sheared otherwise. Okay, let's look at the modeling on this. So we go into tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. Now, just a heads up, we're on the air on the TV side live at 5 to 7, and then we're on plus from 7 to 9. So we got all morning to give you updates on this in case this begins to quickly get organized. Cheetah will be watching it early tomorrow morning. And maybe it will. You can see a little bit of spin trying to develop on our high-res model, but it really doesn't get going. But what it does do is, if there is a little low-level center moving in here, remember this is a counterclockwise rotation, it's going to sling moisture up into the Texas coast and Houston and southeast Texas. So this is going to increase rain chances going into Friday. This is Friday morning as the mess of it makes landfall in northern Mexico and Texas. Friday and Saturday, good chance for rain and thunder showers as that deep tropical moisture comes into the Texas coast. Not the best time to go swimming if you're inexperienced. I expect increased surf and an increased rip current threat. And then again, I wrote in here 10% chance. Just in the last hour, Hurricane Center upped it back to a 20% chance that this develops. Still a low chance, but there it is. Here's another look at some more low-res modeling, but this shows the blob of tropical moisture very clearly coming up across the southern Gulf. This is tomorrow, and we will have scattered thunderstorms here unrelated to that tomorrow here in Houston and southeast Texas. And then that blob of moisture comes in, and you can see how it just blossoms into Texas, Louisiana, South Texas, the entire Texas coast, even into the hill country. I-35 corridor gets a chance for thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon from moisture from this system. Now, what I want to show you is something we will be paying attention to, and Mets are already watching this going into Saturday. That tropical moisture is in place right here, and we're going to see afternoon and evening thunderstorms, and some of those could be heavy in a tropical atmosphere. So from the hill country to south central Texas to Austin to Waco to Houston to Longview to Dallas, everybody has a chance for a heavy downpour going into Saturday because of that moisture from what it wasn't even a named system, just a slug of tropical moisture. It's much like Barry, a very weak system, but a lot of moisture comes in and it creates a chance for heavy rain. So that's a look at what's going on in the Gulf. There's our little area of disturbed weather. There's Texas, there's Florida, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and that is Tropical Storm Barry, way out there in the open Atlantic, several thousand miles away. Barry is a tropical storm. It does not have an eye. Wouldn't expect it to. Really need to get to strong Cat 1, Cat 2 to start seeing an eye open up on these storms. The storm itself is moving west at 17. That is a reduction in forward speed. It was moving west at 22, 23 the past couple of days. That really fast forward speed actually can inhibit development as the surface rotation tends to want to outrun the upper level thunderstorms. But now that it's slowing down a little bit, I think it's helping it get organized. So it's better organized. Winds are up to 50. Pressure's down from 100 to 1,001 millibars. Yesterday at this time it was at 1,006 millibars. So it's dropped 5 millibars over the past 24 hours. When pressure's dropped, that's an indication that the storm is strengthening. So there we are with the system. You can see the track from the Hurricane Center basically due west for the next 36 hours, and then eventually it ends up here and becomes a Cat 2 Friday afternoon, Friday night, Cat 2, Cat 3 by Sunday and Monday. So winds forecast to get up to 120 sustained in Cat 3 Hurricane Erin at that point as we head into Monday. Now, what's important on this track, a couple of things: stays out of the Caribbean and stays out of the Gulf. So for we here in Houston, that's very good news. We don't want to see a storm coming through the Caribbean. That opens up the Gulf and puts it in play. So it's not in play for Erin. And also, it looks like it's going to miss to the north San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And also looks like it's going to miss the Bahamas. So what I have here are two models running at one time. In red, you see the isobars around a center of a hurricane that the Euro is forecasting. In yellow, you see the isobars lining up and around the center of a hurricane that the American model, the GFS, is forecasting. So I like to run these at the same time just to get an idea of what the two big models are seeing, and we'll go into motion. And they both have a similar outcome. The Euro grazes about 100, 150 miles off the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina, then turns it back out to sea, while the American keeps it further out away from the east coast of the U.S. They'll got a lot of surf and sea, maybe even some erosion if the Euro model pans out, but the bulk of the storm, the main storm energy, stays off the east coast. To set your bearings, there is Bermuda, so this looks like it's going to shoot the gap between the east coast of the U.S. and Bermuda. So why is it moving that way? It's the upper level winds. So that's where the storm is right now. And look how the flow is just west. And so that's why right now it's just forecast to move just on to the west. But notice here's our ridge of high pressure sitting right here. And you see the flow around that ridge of high pressure. So these storms follow the flow around highs and lows. So what this is going to do is follow that high and begin to move to the northwest. That's why it's curving away from the greater and lesser Antilles. So we'll put this in motion. And not only does it curve around that high, but as things evolve going into Sunday, we actually get a little break. We get a high pressure here, we've got another high here, and there's a little valley right in between. So think of this as a mountain of air. This is a mountain of air. Here's the valley. These storms want to take the path of least resistance. They also want to curve to the north because of the Coriolis effect, because planet Earth is a rotating sphere. So this is going to shoot the gap in between the two areas of high pressure. That's why it's moving in that direction. And notice also to the north, so we're in August, but especially as we get into late August, early September, northern hemisphere, we begin to change seasons. We're beginning to get a little bit of troughiness here, a little trough. And so think of that as a hand that wants to dip down and grab storms and pull them to the north. So that trough is combined with a little valley between the two mountain ranges, allow the storm to escape to the north. That's Tuesday. We go into Wednesday, and then now the trough becomes more magnified. And at this point, the storm's accelerating to the north and northeast, being grabbed by that trough, being pulled on up to the north. You see how it's rotating around a high pressure area. And that's how and why these storms track the way they do. And so it will get caught up in that upper level flow, the jet stream, and get raced off east of Halifax and St. John's. And eventually that's going to end up in Great Britain with a big wind and rainstorm for them. Okay, that is where we stand on this Wednesday evening. There are also some pretty good thunderstorms if you're watching us live in northwest Harris County tonight, Tomball area up to near the Woodlands area, back out into southern Grimes County, across 290 into Cypress, getting some rain and thunder tonight. We'll have an update on that. We'll have another update on the tropics. Our next live broadcast on KHOU 11 News at 10 o'clock. We'll see you then.